just before Christmas 2023. She was in South Africa and she was collaborating on some new music and also shooting some music videos. And we had a quick catch up with her on the show. It's just gone 10 past 1 o'clock on this fine Wednesday afternoon, slap bam in the middle of the week. And we've got lots to cover today. We're going to be looking at an interesting model that combines data and behavioral science to map out the psychological games that cyber criminals play. And we're going to be in conversation with Professor of Information Systems at Wits University around this, looking at cyber crimes. And then we're going to touch base with a fashion designer and a business owner for Made in SA and looking at a local fashion business. On the other side of two, we are exploring relationship conversation. It's Wednesday after all. So on Wednesday, we kind of delve into the more interpersonal conversation. And we're exploring relationships and we're looking at navigating love's landscape and some surprising signs of what could be considered thriving relationships, plus alarming red flags that perhaps we should be on the lookout for. And then, of course, we're also going to be looking at the impact of diet on anxiety and depression. Here's the other conversation that we're wanting to have today. And we're wanting to get your take and your opinion on this particular matter because 10 o'clock did hit today. And the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture was quite adamant that that list of people who have beneficiaries of the department should be released. He made mention of this. I think it was on Monday or it was over the weekend that he's given an instruction to the Department of Sport to compile a list of people who have been beneficiaries of the department. And he would make that list public for all of us to peruse and then to have a discussion about the people that were featured on the list, whether or not whatever that they had done for the department or with the department was of benefit for the department or for the respective industries in sports, arts and culture. And he had promised that that list would be out at 10 o'clock this morning. I did see some people on Twitter asking him, they had set their alarm clocks and they were waiting for the list, asking him to share that list. So that was one of the instructions that he'd given in recent days. He also gave the instruction that all trips for superfans should be stopped with immediate effect. In fact, he tweeted that, "I have stopped all trips for superfans. We have athletes and artists who are struggling to raise money to attend sporting events and exhibitions. So how do we justify paying for fans? We shall no longer be paying for these trips and we'll use that money where it's needed the most." And both these things have sparked all kinds of conversation and discourse on social media. And so I want to gauge your sentiment around your thoughts and thinking around this, because then there's the argument that people have made to say, it's one thing, for instance, to release a list of people who had gotten funding and sponsorship and tenders from, the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. It's another thing to be releasing a list that also includes artists, creators and sports people who ultimately rendered a service to the department and invoiced for that service. So, in the rebut, they'd release a statement where they mentioned Makadzi and mentioned that they had procured her, or his predecessor had procured her presumably to perform at X amount. It's not my business to disclose the amount, at X amount. So the discourse then becomes, well, she was performing. She's a performer. So she rendered a service. You paid for her to come and be an entertainer. And that is not a sponsorship. It's not funding. It's not a tender. It's somebody providing you a service that you ultimately pay for, the market-related pricing. I don't know what your thinking is on either or, but we'd love to gauge. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line if you'd like to send us a WhatsApp voice note, or 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. Let's take a quick break and then we come back and we get into our first conversation.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
It is The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. In our first conversation today, we are catching up with Professor Reni Naidu, who's a professor of information systems at Wits University. And we're looking at, a model that's combining data and behavioral science to map up the psychological games that cyber criminals play. And obviously, we've seen the rise in cyber crimes in South Africa. The respective industries, primarily the financial industries and financial sector, has really been very vocal around some of the cyber crimes that we're seeing, and just how superior they really all are in the modern day, and how easy it could be for us to fall victim and to fall trap to them. And so we thought we'd catch up with the good professor and find out what they've been doing in as far as this is concerned. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yeah, good to be on your show.
Thank you so much for the time. It is a very serious concern. Cyber crimes domestically and internationally, they are on the rapid increase, but also they're advancing. Cyber criminals are becoming quite elite in how they go about masterminding all the different elements.
Yeah, so it seems the more technology advances, the more cyber criminals advance with these technologies. So it becomes a major challenge for us.
Yeah, and when we talk about the challenges, let's perhaps understand where some of that challenge lays, not just only for the respective sectors, but also, I guess, for governments worldwide.
Yeah, I mean, governments face, an individual attacker. It could be a disgruntled employee, and you could move all the way up to nation states that could attack certain aspects of government. We're familiar with elections being targets of nation states. So, the spectrum is wide. It could be, as I mentioned, a disgruntled employee, right, all the way to a nation state that could be viewed as a cyber criminal.
Talk to us about this model that you guys have been working on at Wits University, and what it is essentially, and how it then combines data and behavioral science to just chart the psychology of cyber criminals.
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk about 4R technologies and big data analytics and data science, and we believe it holds a lot of promise for finding innovative ways to try and tackle the scourge of cybercrime. Unfortunately, what tends to happen in industry is you have data scientists that will work on use sophisticated statistical techniques and try to resolve these problems using what we call machine learning technologies. And algorithms, and they tend to work independently of the behavioral scientists. So at WITS, what we're trying to do is promote interdisciplinary perspectives to solving some of these problems. So even some of our degrees, you will find we combining behavioral science with some of the harder, computer science, software engineering, information science, systems sciences, to get people to our students to get both sides of the skill sets, and so that's how we started to embark on this little exercise, is to see how we can combine what we call data science, which is as I mentioned, the use of computing power databases, statistical methods, and algorithms, and working with large volumes of structured and unstructured data, and how do you combine that with the knowledge, the scientific knowledge that's been accumulated by behavioral sciences, and that's how that project started.
Yeah, and what have been some of, the findings from this particular study?
So what you find is cyber criminals, as you mentioned, can use deceptive can be quite deceptive and manipulative. So they use some kinds of psychological techniques. So we drew on what we call the psychology of compliance, and there's really 6 principles that guide how how you can get humans to comply, and as you would chat on your show about authority, for example, how authority figures, humans, we tend to obey the instructions of authority figures. Or there's another feature that we call consistency. Once you make a commitment, like when you go into a store and you make a commitment to buy something, there's an inclination that you're going to do it. Liking is a very popular feature that's used, especially with social media types of scams. If your friends believe in something, then you're more likely to believe in that because you like your friends. And then reciprocity. If someone does you a favor, then you're more likely to return a favor. Scarcity is another technique that they use, and this one's quite a popular scam with phishing emails, where what the cyber criminal wants you to do is act quickly without thinking about something. So they create this an opportunity with a limited time, and then you feel rushed to make a decision. So that's scarcity. And then there's another feature called social proof. And this is also linked to a lot of the social media type crimes. If other people complied, for example, you are more likely to comply. So if other people are that are similar to you are taking part in a donation, online donation event, then you're more likely to do it, because if your friends are doing it, that's proof that it's good enough for you to do it. And so these are the kinds of features that cyber criminals are using in setting up their scams, and what we are trying to do is then use data science to predict what kind of features they're using, so we can then prevent victims from falling prey to these kinds of tactics.
You actually do say that predictive analysis would help cybersecurity teams anticipate and prevent large-scale attacks. Expand to us on that.
Yeah, so if you can make a prediction, for example, let's say you get an email, and this email wants you to make a very quick decision. So it's what we call the urgency queue is being used by the cyber criminal. Now, what we can do is then mark that email as being risky for the end user, and then that'll make you a little bit more tentative to click on any links that you might see there. So that's an example of how you can use these tactics to these kind of markers to predict what kind of scams or the cyber criminal is using, and then give the end user a heads up, an alert for that this is probably not the kind of email that you want to respond to, or you probably want to set this email aside and think about what you're doing before you click on a link. Let
me ask you this as well, Prof. Clearly here you're suggesting that we can't solely just rely on the data science part of things without looking at the human factors that also drive cybercrime behavior.
Yes, so what we're hoping for is in industry and also at the university, we're hoping for more collaboration between the behavioral scientists and the data scientists. What we'd like to see is this kind of shared environment, a shared workspace where behavioral scientists and data scientists work together to tackle the cybercrime problem. And what we're hoping for is more universities introduce degree programs where data scientists are not just trained on the hard skills, but also on the soft skills, that they themselves understand human behavior, and then combining those skills, we think we can come up with more practical solutions that can solve real-world problems.
Talk to us or help us understand. I also read that you sort of drew extensively from a U.S. psychologist as part of this study, or incorporated some of his work in just getting the data for the study.
Yes, so we drew from the work of Robert Cialdini. His work is used in different areas. It's actually used to train salespeople, for example, in how to obtain compliance from a consumer. It's used in advertising, and then we thought, Well, this could be an innovative idea to use it to understand cybercrime, and the root of his theory is called the psychology of compliance. And we thought, well, we should actually use this to try and understand how these principles, whether they're inadvertently or deliberately used by cyber criminals is still debatable. But as you mentioned, these kind of scams are becoming more and more sophisticated. So we are definitely picking up that they use multiple concepts and principles. Like I mentioned, authority goes together with scarcity, for example. So you might find, you'll receive a scam from the South African Revenue Services, and we all view SARS as an authority organization. So if the scam uses scarcity, we are likely to respond to that. And similarly, with our banks, we tend to view our banks as authority figures, and so if the bank asks us to do something, we are likely to comply. So we thought this was a very good theory to use to complement the work of data scientists. And it's a lot like working in the kitchen. Sometimes you're working on a recipe, but you don't know what ingredients you need, and that's what big data and big data science, big data analytics is like. You're working with lots of data, but it could be lots of noise, like you've got lots of ingredients in the kitchen. But if you really want to make a good prediction of, am I going to make something good, bake a good cake, then, well, you need to know exactly what those ingredients are. And so that's what we're trying to do with this work, is try and figure out, given all the noise that exists in cybersecurity intelligence data feeds, how can we, just work on those features that are relevant to understand the kind of tactics that the cyber criminal is using. And we're finding, as I mentioned, those 6 tactics: authority, consistency, liking, reciprocity, scarcity, and social proof.
Yeah.
Those are used very often in cybercrime, social engineering tactics.
Yeah. Prof. Reni Naidu, thank you so much for the time. And Prof. Naidu is a professor of information systems at Wits University. It's 1:30, time to catch up with Madupi Makhalamele and the headline news.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridge, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, the Public Works and Infrastructure Department says it has detected widespread fraud and corruption amounting to 300 million rand within the department over the past 10 years. The Sports, Arts and Culture Department has met the deadline to publish the full list of COVID-19 relief beneficiaries for the years 2020 and 2021. And a day after schools reopen in the province, 12 learners and a driver have died in a devastating accident in the Kokosiwetela area in Merafong on the west of Joburg. Details of these and other stories, 2 o'clock.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
It is The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM. It's just gone 1:30. 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line, and 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on. And we'd love to sort of gauge your thinking around the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie's instructions to his department. He made the instruction, at the beginning of the week, and he tweeted that I'd given instructions that a list be published of all artists, creatives and sports peoples who have been receiving money from the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, inclusive of amounts and reasons, and the time where only a select connected few benefit is over. He also gave an instruction that with immediate effect, he's going to be stopping all travel for sports super fans that were traveling the globe to support national teams. It says, I have stopped all trips for super fans. We have athletes and artists who are struggling to raise money to attend sporting events and exhibitions. And how do you justify paying for fans? We shall no longer be paying for these trips, and we will use that money where it's needed the most. And we'd love to know your thoughts on this. Do you think this is the right move? Do you think that sporting super fans should perhaps be accommodated for some of these trips to go out and support national teams? Does it speak to transparency? And how are we terming beneficiary? Because he then went on to use Makatsi as an example, and it sparked a discourse around, well, you're saying funding, sponsorship, and tendering, those are beneficiaries. And tendering, I guess, debated, because then it's a whole nother conversation. But if someone is providing you a service, if someone is coming to entertain and you are booking them as a singer and an artist and a poet, they are coming to do their job and they are invoicing you for it, and you've accepted a market-related quote for their service. Similarly, if someone is coming to MC or host a panel discussion, they're providing a service. They're not it's not funding, it's not sponsorship, it's not tendering. So there's all that conversation, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So we thought we'd have our very own Dumi on the line. How are you, Dumi?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Bridget? Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Thank you for taking the time. I mean, you are obviously in the world of sports, and let's start maybe by understanding the role of sporting superfans, and I know Mama Joy's been getting the brunt of it, but I guess she's the one that everyone recognizes, distinctly. But there are tons of sporting superfans. What is the role of superfans in sporting codes?
In all honesty, the role of a superfan is literally what it is. You're a superfan and you are there to support our national team, regardless of the sport and where it is. So basically just giving support to our national teams wherever they are, and showing that us as South Africa, we are there to support our team. It could be in South Africa, it could be anywhere in the country, as you do allude to the fact that Mama Joy is the one that comes to mind, because we've seen her out there. She's I think she takes her craft very seriously, because you can even see with the clothes that she wears, with the hats that she wears, and some of them you can even see them in the stadiums. They're literally out there to show that I am here to support South Africa, and I am here to fully support them. And some of them, obviously, they have clubs. We see Mama Joy, she's on Royal AM side. But I'm just thinking off the top of my head, Abueta, yes, we knew him as someone who supported Bloemfontein Celtic, but we've seen him literally traveling across the country to support sport as a whole, just to say, listen, I'm a sports supporter, and I'm here to do it loudly and proudly, to say, listen, I'm here to support whichever team I want, or most importantly, South Africa.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, and considering also, when I saw this, to put a spanner in the works, when we were at Côte d'Ivoire, it was painful watching when the cameras would pan the stands and you realize that South Africans did not go out to go support Bafana Bafana, even though we kept on seeing that the boys were determined to now, show us a more improved squad. To the last minute, those grandstands on the South African side were empty. And all I saw was Mama Joy and a handful of people who had flown on their own accord to go and support. So with that context in the back of our minds, should we then be saying, let's end it? Let's throw away the baby with the bathwater? Or should the minister be considering a different modeling of how we incorporate super fans to go out and support the teams?
I mean, when I first saw the tweet, the first thing that came to mind is that, is this a black and white kind of a situation where you can literally say, we're cutting out the super fans, and the athletes that need the funding, the money needs to be directed completely to them, and we cut out the super fans. But in all honesty, this conversation, I think you can look at it from different sides or perspectives, because one, yes, Minister Gayton McKenzie is making a valid point. The fact that Imagine sending a super fan to go support a national team while there are athletes that are struggling. I know of athletes that are struggling. He even highlighted the women's hockey team. I've spoken to them, and they're going to the Olympics, and they were saying, we're struggling to get funding to prepare our team to go to the Olympics so that we don't just add the numbers when we get to the Olympics. So that is one key side of the story. However, does it mean that the super fans don't add value? And I'm asking this question based on what you just said, that we look at a Cote d'Ivoire, the Africa Cup of Nations, a team is going to represent South Africa. I mean, truth of the matter is not every fan can go and support the South African team. There are different sporting codes. There are some fans that are able to afford it better than others. But when we look at football, in all honesty, I don't think not a lot of people can afford to go to a Cote d'Ivoire to go and support South Africa when they play in whatever matches that they play. But I know it does something to the players, because also you'd see on Mama Joy's social media page where she went to the hotel to go and show the team that, listen, we're here to support you. We've always heard how the 12th man somehow does something. It literally gives them more confidence, even though they know that, listen, we're at a stadium where there's thousands of fans from Cote d'Ivoire. At least we know that there are fans, even though they're not as many as we'd want them to be, but at least we know that we're playing towards them and they're here to just give us that moral support. So for me, I think it's not a black and white thing where we can officially say, listen, we're cutting out the super fans. There's a side to being a super fan, I think. And I feel like the minister needs to sit down and first figure out, okay, I do understand millions, because in his tweet he says millions was going to sending fans abroad and stuff. But is there no way to work around it? And I think for me, it's an opportunity to perhaps even try to conversate with federations to say, I mean, it's easier for you guys to have sponsors. You guys have money. Is there a way that you can spend some sort of money to trying to help to get a super fan to go to support? I mean, for example, if the Proteas are playing Cricket South Africa, SARU or SAFA, but to say that they're completely cutting any funding going to the super fans, I don't know if that is the way to go about it.
Yeah, and in tandem, and we see you standing by on the lines. I'm definitely going to come to the calls now. 086 000 2032, and our WhatsApp line is 061 410 4107. And to what you're saying, Dumi, because we've all been discoursing around this on our social media, on our private platforms with friends, and maybe in what you're saying, the consideration should be in understanding the role that super fans play for just the morale for the teams when they are playing internationally, to be able to look out and see your flag and your colors, and you can just pick up that one voice that's screaming for you and in your corner. But also the role that it sort of plays in the branding and the marketing of South Africa. And therein maybe lies the potential for the minister to say, maybe let's look at reworking it and working hand in hand with organizations like Brand SA, like South African Tourism, for instance, like Proudly South African. All these entities that are put in place to brand and market South Africa can then all pull together, so that perhaps the full weight of the financial burden is not lying on the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture.
For me, I think it's a priority thing to say, okay, fine. As the Department of Sports, our priority is to make sure that our artists and our athletes don't go without funding. However, in the same breath, we have super fans. So what does super fans add to the fact that when a South African team is out of the country, it also includes tourism in a way. It also includes the fact that they're putting South Africa out there on the... Mama Joy would even tell you that, my goodness, I would go to France and people would stop me because they know that I'm from South Africa. Is that not one way of literally promoting the country? So you are right in terms of perhaps they need to look at the model of it all and trying to find different departments who can work together to also help our superfans to go out there, because for me personally, I think they do add some sort of value.
Absolutely. Dumi Mkhapele, thank you so much for the time, madam. We'll see you at 3 o'clock, of course, on the National Pulse. Our lines are open in Pindile in the Eastern Cape. I see you, as well as Uncle Jova, Tulani, Bongani, and everyone else on WhatsApp. We're going to come straight to you after this very short break on 086 000 2032 and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line.
In South Africa, 1 in 5 children under the age of 13 is overweight or obese. Sign a petition to demand strong warning labels on unhealthy packaged food. And don't forget to catch the next episode of Chew on This at healer.org on Thursday, 27 June from 3 p.m. Young people tell us how big food companies are feeding them lies.
The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from 10 to 12 July 2024 in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. Tune in to The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda to get insights from the conference. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
What's up, good people? It's Bulela Podisa, the girl from next door that you can call friend. This is Deal or No Deal Celebrity. Catch us every Saturday at 6 p.m.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Let's go straight to the calls without wasting any time. Pindile out in the Eastern Cape. How are you?
Good. It's just a little bit cold. Yes, I'm very, very in favor of what Gaten has done for superfans, especially Mama Joy. Mama Joy is a Kaiser Chief superfan. All of a sudden, she went so popular. Now she's got rugby, netball essay, cricket essay, everything. She flies all over the country. I would say that why not take, you know what, let's take, for example, rugby. There are a lot of youngsters who, whilst playing rugby, got injured and are paralyzed. Why not take one of them, make them a superfan, realize their dream and put them on a plane to New York, wherever, so that they can have that opportunity to go and watch their favorite sport, wherever it is, and give that boy or girl that opportunity. Why waste it on Mama Joy, who flies all over the world? What is she going to do?
I hear you.
I mean, that is really, really, it was a waste of money and time.
I hear you, Pindile.
On the spot, he must not buy that.
Okay, I hear you. Perhaps diversify is what I'm also hearing. Perhaps diversify around the sporting codes. Uncle Jova, how are you?
I'm well, thanks for asking. And how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, I think I partially agree with the previous speaker. Look, the minister is 100% spot on in stopping all this, because these are some of the vehicles that were used by those government officials in order to pursue some corruption activities. It is good that our teams must be supported. We agree with that. Let me make an example of football. I think FIFA is recognizing the fans or the supporters' structures. It's supporting that they must be established and they must be recognized. Now, the only thing that the minister must do is that he must start those support-based or fans-based structures. They must be established, and then we must work. Everything must be done through them, not an individual. Recently, there was this lady from...
Apu Jova, we have to give other people a chance, but I got you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Puchova. That was Puchova in Free State. And I think maybe he's also speaking around the Gwijo squad, for instance, who've mobilized themselves and they're a big unit of rugby supporters. Maybe, more organized organizations could be then structurally helped out, in various ways. I don't know. Let's go to, is it Limaz in Bushbuck Ridge? How are you?
No, it's well. Thanks for vulgarizing the name.
Askis.
Lemias Mashile.
Lemias. Thank you, Lemias.
Lemias,
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I think the biggest problem is that we just have a brand new minister.
Mm.
And these are the signs of a brand new minister that doesn't have the experience of being a minister before. Because the crucial point that is required from him is to know the department before he gives all sorts of instructions. Because the people that have taken a decision to do those things and support certain people to accompany our squads, they have actually applied their minds. The only thing that he needs to come is to come to the department, understand those things, then take correct, conscious decisions informed by the basis of the decisions taken by the previous ministers to do so. I hope that Gayton McKenzie would not like a situation where Sundowns goes to DR Congo with 100 supporters.
Oh, we lost you. Sorry about that. We lost you. Let's go to WhatsApp, 0614104107.
Hi, this is Bridget here from KZN. Look, Mina Sisi, being a public servant or being employed by government, I know and understand very well that any spending from a public purse automatically becomes a public information, because end of the day, directly or indirectly, we have to come back to the public and account for as to how was their money spent or their money spent. So even if I was a beneficiary, let's say for example, since there were disasters in KZN, my name is there on the disaster list, is there on the name of people who benefited from the disaster. That particular spending, it becomes a public information and becomes a public interest. I see no foul play. There's no foul play altogether, sis.
Good afternoon. Thanks for a great show. Sean from Centurion. I absolutely 100% agree with the DA. Because that money can be spent so much better on young disadvantaged kids to learn to play sport and get them out of black holes. Instead of sending people to go watch a game, which I understand what they're trying to do, but what about the rest of us who can't afford to go to those games? You know what I mean? So the DA is holding true to its word and starting to eradicate unwanted expenditure. Anyway, have a fantastic afternoon.
Good day, Anonymous from PE. I do think that Minister McKenzie is correct. If you should have a super fan, you should have a group of super fans that can sponsor from all race groups and they can attend, especially locally, local events. But I think he's correct in saying that those monies can be utilized to the broader community and to benefit more people than one, what is just benefiting a few individuals. So nothing wrong with that. And I think as an incoming minister, he's cleaning the house, which is also a good sign of a good leader. Thank you, Anonymous from P.
Listen, and that's the thing. Sometimes you just got to let the new broom try and sweep clean and then see how far it gets, right? Our previous WhatsApp before that, Minister Gayton McKenzie is not with the DA. I know some people like to assign the DA all kinds of things, but he's not with the DA. He's very much with the PA, doing his thing there. Tulani in Cape Town, let's wrap up with you. How are you? Tulani?
Yes, we welcome this initiative by Minister McKenzie and hope we'll use the money to develop sports in the location and rural areas. I've got a point now. There's a guy now in Kailicha, Michali Nomtai, who's 19, was approached by Rhinos rugby team in Ireland. He needs 48,000. The the tournament is in September. We hope Mr. Mackenzie can jump in and save this young man so that he can prosper in his rugby career. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tilani. And hopefully that information gets to the new minister's ears. I know he's very active on social media.
I did send him on WhatsApp, but he has not yet responded. I hope he will respond.
You must hit him on social media, and he does listen to the show.
I did send him the link, the media link, because this story was also on the newspapers. I hope he will respond.
Okay,
but
let's hope so too.
We welcome him on this new initiative and hope this money will save more young people from the townships.
Yeah. Okay, we have
they will prosper.
We have to get into Kids Corner, but thank you, Tilani. Thank you for ending it on hopefully a bright note. We wish that young man some success with this upcoming trip. Let's get into Kids Corner. If we find some time after 2, we'll play some more of your voice notes.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Hello, my name is Demba Ramadan. I'm 11 years old and I'm in grade 5. If I could solve one problem in the world, it would be violence. Violence is not the answer to your questions. How would you and I solve violence? Is by telling someone if you are the victim or a witness to violence. Take a stand against violence. Yes, I have interest in bringing solutions to the problems that we are facing the world because we are giving the world problems. Like all these world wars, theft, killing our animals by pollution, and killing each other. Like, what is the point of all of that? You know, some countries are stubborn and want to kill in order to answer their question. Even if it's not true, but we need to stop all of this. And after the solution is done, then our world will have peace. Finally.
Hello everyone, my name is Lorraine Moyo. I'm 12 years old. If there was one thing that I could change is to change pollution, and how I would do that is you can turn off your engine when you're driving. You drive your car less, and you need to keep your car in good repair. You also don't burn your garbage, and you limit backyards fire in the city, and also you need to plant and care for trees because those are the ones which absorb all the pollution. And also you need to switch to electric or hand-powered lawn equipment and use less energy. And yes, I would bring interest in helping solve these problems because I don't like the smell of smoke when someone is burning a fire or burning their garbage. And yeah, that's what I want. I want to stop pollution. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.
My name is Libanzi Hlongwane. If I could change one problem in the world, that would definitely be corruption. Corruption is something that is actually sickening and so irritating. And I believe that in my eyes, if corruption were to stop today, the world would be a better place. And let me tell you why I say this. When we look at things like poor economic growth, poor education system, poor healthcare, all of these things stem from corruption. I believe that I would solve corruption in a way of just going to jail. If you are ever found guilty of corruption, you are going to go to jail. No matter who you are, no matter how much you have, no matter what position you have in this country, if you are going to be found guilty of corruption, you are going to go to jail. Point blank, period. I do have so many things that I feel like need changing, and it's not just in my country, it is also in the world. There are so many bad things that are happening like all around. How many years will it take to make the world a better place?
Hello, my name is Monet Angel Nengabera. I'm in grade 8. I'm 13 years old and I live in Gauteng. If I could solve one problem in the world, it would be the issue of women, children, and men abuse. This issue could be solved by reporting it to the police. The victims could also walk away from the person that's abusing them. It can also be solved by educating people about the signs, forms, and impacts of abuse. promoting healthy relationships, holding the abusers accountable, creating safe spaces, and encouraging self-care. Yes, I do have interest in bringing solutions to the problems that we are facing in the world, because that way we can be able to live in a free society, a society that is supportive and there are no judgments and it is also safe. Let us encourage kids to think globally and propose solutions to real-world issues. Thank you and have a lovely day.
Hello friends! Today let's talk about the importance of thinking creatively and looking at the bigger picture when it comes to real-world issues. Our world faces many challenges every day, and we all have a role to play in finding solutions. Even us as children have the power to make a difference. Problem solving involves coming up with innovative ways to address problems and make things better. Whether it's helping to clean up the environment, finding ways to conserve water, or assisting those in need, every effort counts. It's important for us as children to think outside the box and collaborate so that we can all contribute to making the world a better place. There are numerous real-world issues that require your fresh ideas and enthusiasm. Think about the pollution harming our planet, the animals losing their habitats, and people lacking access to food and clean water. These are significant problems, but you and I can make a difference with small actions. Start by recycling, planting trees, or creating a small garden. Every little step helps. Your ideas and actions, no matter how small they may seem, can have a big impact. Furthermore, solving major problems often involves teamwork. By working together with others at home or school, you can share ideas, leverage your strengths, and achieve more than you could alone. Collaborating will also teach you important skills like cooperation, communication, and leadership, which are valuable in all aspects of life. Have you thought about getting involved in community projects? Start by discussing this with your family on how you can contribute. It's a great way to begin. As you grow, you will encounter new challenges and opportunities to solve problems. July is Mandela Month, and we are encouraged to follow in Nelson Mandela's footsteps by making a positive impact in our local communities. By developing your problem-solving skills now, you prepare yourself to tackle challenges effectively. Stay curious, stay inquisitive, continue to inquire, and never shy away from experimenting with new ideas. Your innovation and perseverance can pave the way for incredible solutions that enhance lives and safeguard our planet. Always remember, every remarkable solution begins with someone like you who is passionate about making a positive impact. Celebrating Mandela Month is a great way for us to learn about the importance of helping others. You've got enough time before the 18th of July to think about something you can do to impact the life of others.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
The top stories this hour: the Public Works Department experiences widespread fraud and 12 learners killed in a horror Joburg crash. A very good afternoon. Public Works and Infrastructure says it has detected widespread fraud and corruption amounting to 300 million rand within the department over the past 10 years. It says in the latest cybercrime attack in May, 24 million rand was stolen from the department. 4 officials have since been suspended as a result, while 30 laptops have been seized. The department has been forced to shut down all its payment systems. Newly appointed Minister Dean McPherson says the investigation is ongoing. He also addressed issues of money being owed to the department by other departments within government.
Public Works is no longer the punching bag for other departments across the country. We provide services to clients which are other departments, and they owe us 18 billion rand in unpaid service charges for this department. We can't carry that for them. And so as a department, we are audited against not collecting those service charges.
The Sports, Arts and Culture Department has met the deadline to publish the full list of COVID-19 relief beneficiaries for the years 2020 and 2021. Minister Gayton McKenzie had given the department until 10 this morning to publish the full list of financial beneficiaries. McKenzie had said on social media that there were many allegations and denials regarding non-support to artists, creatives and sports people. He announced yesterday that he had stopped all trips for superfans, saying the money would be better used for athletes and artists who are struggling to raise money to attend sporting events and exhibitions. A day after schools reopen in the province, 12 learners and a driver have died in a devastating accident in the Kokosiwetala area in Merafong on the west of Joburg. 7 learners who were injured have been taken to a hospital. This after the minibus, which is a private scholar transport, was involved in a crash. It's alleged that the minibus was hit from behind by a buggy, causing it to overturn and subsequently catch fire. Police are investigating the circumstances around the incident. Gauteng Education spokesperson Steve Mabona.
The Gauteng Education MEC Matume Chilwane is deeply saddened about an incident that occurred this morning where about 11 learners from Rocklands Primary School and 1 learner from Lyre School play for Eitzig in Carltonville, and the driver who lost their lives in a devastating accident. The psycho support unit has been referred to the school to provide necessary support.
Former ANC MP Cyril Xaba has been elected as the new mayor of the eThekwini Metro. He replaces Mxolisi Kaunda, who the ANC redeployed to the NCOP following the elections. Action SA leader in the council, Zwakele Mngxango, also nominated the DA chief whip Thabani Mthethwa, who declined. Mngxango earlier said that the new mayor should not come from the ANC's ranks in the light of the challenges that the city is facing. Following his election, Xaba undertook that service delivery will be one of his top priorities. He says the recent extended water outage in Hillcrest and Claremont Extension is unacceptable.
I found it utterly unacceptable. I shall write to the city manager to ask for a detailed report as to why the residents of Claremont Extension and Hillcrest were without water. Whether such could have been prevented or at least mitigated. Whether there was negligence on the part of our officials and the proposed course of action.
And the High Court in Pretoria is expected to deliver judgment in the Life Esidimeni inquest shortly. The inquest was opened after 144 mentally ill patients died in 2016 after being relocated from Life Esidimeni to ill-equipped and unlicensed NGOs. The tragedy has been described as one of the biggest human rights violations in democratic South Africa. The judgment will be delivered virtually. The top story at 2 o'clock, the Public Works and Infrastructure says it has detected widespread fraud and corruption amounting to 300 million rand within the department over the past 10 years. The Full Circle continues. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemeni.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Matlonolo, lerato, kolofelo, letepo, nete le tumelo, ke tsela ya bophelo, re le tlhaba, le dikela, ke felelwa ke matla, ke tshwerwe ke lenyora, sentahle ngwaneshu, le ge go le bjalo. You wanna send a Chiwana esena legaye Sempetere umbona Garama sui sui Kesena legaye Mashono lo lerato Kolofelo le tempo Nete le tumelo Kitsila ya bupilo Melita Pidigela Kefala luak imata Kitore kilinyora Sintate ngwanishu Lere olivia Lere oliwimo Nete le tumelo Kitila ya bupilo Lere olivia Lere oliwimo Ntware kanitso Sentahle ngwaneshu Lere olivia Lere oliwimo Nete le tumelo Kitila ya bupilo Lere olivia Lere oliwimo Ntware kanitso Sentahle ngwaneshu Oh no ya no no Oh no no ya no no Nay 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 ya no 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 ya no no
Not too sure which album this one is taken from, but it is Judith Sipuma with Chiwana. And I think that you can find it on the Essential Judith Sipuma as one of the tracks there. But if you do know, maybe you can enlighten me a little bit via WhatsApp on 061-410-4107. That is our WhatsApp line. We'll double back to your voice notes regarding the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture and some of the announcements that he's made, beginning of this week. And we'll definitely double back to those. For now, though, we're moving on in conversation, and we're going to be talking all things relationship with our guest that we're just trying to get on the line. And we're looking at, what are we looking at? Oh, yes, we're looking at navigating love's landscape. I'm still there. I'm still in the conversation around the minister. We're looking at navigating the love landscape and some signs of a thriving, what would be considered a thriving, healthy relationship. And of course, those that could be considered as red flags. We're just trying to get a hold of our guest. And I think we're having some network issues from their end. Seems to be a poor network connection, but we will keep trying. And also in this hour, we want to look at the impact of diet on anxiety and depression. And that conversation is coming up a little bit later. But we have banked some of your thoughts and voice notes our first, not our first conversation, but our earlier conversation. So we'll double back to those as well in this hour on 061-410-4107. Let's just take a quick pause here and then we'll come back.
Nelson Mandela once said,
"It is our hope that people will dedicate their time and effort to improve the conditions within their own community."
Let's honor his legacy. SAFM celebrates Mandela Month. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We are chatting now to Tsiri Letwane, who is a relationship coach, joining us to navigate our way around this conversation, talking around perhaps some of the more healthier signs or the signs of a healthy, thriving relationship versus some of those that could be seen as more alarming and maybe considered as red flags. How are you doing this afternoon, Tsiri? You good?
I'm very well. And how are you doing, Bridget?
I'm great, thank you. Cannot complain. All right, let's talk about relationships. which can be very tricky to navigate, indeed. And they very much are attached to a whole host of emotions, some good and some bad. And we know in the modern day, we throw around a lot of buzzwords around red flags and green flags. But is it as black and white as we make it out to be on social media, what we define as being a healthy, thriving relationship and what we deem as red flags?
Sure. The word relationship in itself, it's very complex. So likewise, even the definition as defined by social media is not as, the reality of it is not as black and white as social media makes it out to be. And like everything else, we can't just use a blanket approach on all relationships. So if one relationship's red flags could be the other relationship's green flags. And what works for one relationship doesn't always for another relationship, and you find that people will judge my healthy relationship according to their standards. So also standards are the determining factor as to whether or not the relationship is healthy or not, because we all get into relationships, we're looking for different things. So my standards and your standards will obviously differ, and based on that, our definition of a healthy relationship would also differ.
And let me also understand, and it's so funny we're talking about this today, Tsidi, because I was, reading up some more on the various attachment styles that are out there in the world of psychology. And to the point that you make about what is healthy in one relationship could very well be unhealthy in another, and vice versa. It then also brings the question of, are we becoming overly analytical now because also of the conversations that we're having on social media, our clickbait sort of discourses that oftentimes do not have context into relationships, and now we're almost comparing apples to oranges, and you go, hey, but Tsidi said this is a red sign. And now you take it and you put it in your relationship and you go, actually Tsidi was right, this is a red sign. Kanti, maybe in your relationship you're taking it out of context of a situation.
You've nailed it. And when you're saying apples to oranges, at least they're fruit. You find sometimes we're comparing apples to cabbages. And just because they're both green does not mean they work, or they even work well together. So the problem with social media lately is the standards are too high, and we don't know who sets these standards. And we've got all these different people on social media that think life works according to their definitions or their standards or even their expectations. And people often fall prey to that. To see. And one friend of mine always says that what you see on IG is not necessarily a reflection of real life. So you need to be careful what you subscribe to. And you need to be able to choose what works for you.
Absolutely. With that said, though, we aren't saying that there aren't red flags or things that should be of concern, right? We're just emphasizing the point that it's all very much situational and nuanced at times to particular individuals, particular relationships, and even where you might be in your life's journey, because that speaks to how you yourself engage, interact, and reflect in a relationship.
My goodness, Bridget, you're just on a flow today. You don't even need me here today.
No, I do need you.
You're getting it all right. Yeah, but I definitely agree with you that even though it's not just cast in stone that this is right and that is wrong, there is obviously going to be those rules that are just there. And whether we agree or not, they'll always be there. For instance, let's make an example. When we talk about red flags, we can never overlook abuse, right? somebody that's verbally abusive or even physically abusive. They can never be one to tell you that in any relationship that's a healthy or a thriving relationship, because how do you even begin to say somebody beating you up or somebody insulting you is healthy?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there are differences, but there's also those similarities where, whether we like it or not, we will agree that this is a red flag or this is a green flag.
Absolutely. And those are some really clear, distinct hard lines, as you say, that we all have to be very much agreeable to and conscientized to. Let's also talk about how are we defining, or what are we considering as a healthy, thriving relationship? Are there things that we should at least be gauging against to say, okay, if I'm gauging it against this, then we are on the right track?
Okay, we'll just go through few. We'll call it, we're back in school now, we call it characteristics.
Okay.
So we'll just go through and just list a few things that we can, by right, if those are followed or those are present in a relationship, we can safely say that, okay, you are in a healthy or even thriving relationship. As cliched or as oversaid as this is, communication has to definitely be one of them. If we are able to communicate well with one another, or if we are able to communicate honestly and respectfully with one another, because sometimes people will say they are communicating, but they end up talking at each other. So if we are able to respect one another, be able to disagree with certain issues or even in the relationship matters, we are able to amicably disagree without fighting one another, then I'd say you are healthy, because you are able to not fight each other, but you are fighting the issue in the relationship and you're trying to resolve the issue in the relationship. So if you can still maintain respect throughout, even in the fights, then you are healthy.
Before we go to the next one, so that I don't interrupt you, let's take a quick break here. It's just gone 2:20, and then we'll come back and continue down the characteristics of what is a healthy or thriving relationship.
No
What's
problem.
up, good people? It's Bulela Polisa, the girl from next door that you can call friend. This is Deal or No Deal Celebrity. Catch us every Saturday at 6 p.m.
The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from 10 to 12 July 2024 in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. Tune in to the Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda to get insights from the conference. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Channel the forgiving spirit of Utata Madiba on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3, as community development practitioner Taryn Liebau shares how he rebuilt a nation with the power to forgive. We discuss the magic of making a child's dream come true and cook up Madiba's favorite oxtail with umngusho. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
As our conversation continues with relationship coach Tsidi Letswane, and we're talking around, of course, what is or isn't a healthy and thriving relationship, some red flags potentially, and how do we define all these things. And you were just running us through the characteristics of what we would consider a healthy and thriving relationship. So we've got respectful and honest communication on the one end, and what else?
Okay, so we're going to link these two again. The next two would be kindness and forgiveness. So we need to be able to be kind with one another. We need to be able to watch what we do and say to one another. So if you can't be kind to your partner, That's not healthy. It's not healthy. Then we link it to forgiveness, because while on the one hand you are failing to be kind, are you able to forgive your partner for the mistakes that they make, or for not being there for you, whatever stance in the relationship, whatever situation that maybe they didn't treat you well, or they said some hurtful words? Are you able to forgive your partner, or are you that one that will remind them that, remember in 1984 this is what you did, remember in 1976 this is what you did, so you hold grudges? Then that's not healthy. We need to be able to be kind enough to one another to forgive, so that we can move on, because holding on to past hurts is not good for the relationship, because now a person is being punished for not what they did today, but what they did years back or even last week. So are we able to move past whatever issue that we had now?
Now, let me put a spanner in the works before we move to the next one. When we speak about forgiveness, Tidi, is there a caveat to that, to say perhaps the forgiveness nayo has its boundary?
Sure. All right. Okay, let's play devil's advocate a bit.
I'm thinking in the scenario where, for instance, somebody keeps doing the same thing, right? So your partner keeps doing the same thing, whether, let's say, infidelity, which is a big thing a lot of people struggle with, where we talk about unhealthy and toxic relationships. So they keep doing the same thing, and they keep saying sorry, and you keep forgiving, and you move on the promise that, no, tomorrow I will not do it again, or tomorrow I'll be a different man. And then it keeps happening. So is forgiveness unending and without boundary in a healthy relationship?
I love that you brought it there. You made it real. You made it real, because I could also sense that a lot of people will be saying, yeah, you must forgive and forgive and forgive. But with forgiveness also comes boundaries and limits, right? So if I do you wrong today and it's the first time, it's a mistake, right? I didn't mean to do it. I found myself in that situation, or maybe I was forced to do it. But if it becomes repeated actions or words, whatever it is, then it's no longer a mistake. You are being intentional with whatever that you're doing. You mentioned infidelity.
Yeah.
If somebody cheats on you once, you find out and you forgive it, it's okay, right? And there'll be people that will say, that's the deal breaker for me, I will never forgive infidelity, right? But if you decide, I'm forgiving them now for their infidelity, and they do it again, now it becomes a matter of they no longer respect you. We're going back to the first point, that there is disrespect now. So now, because I've forgiven you once, you're expecting me to overlook and watch you disrespect me, because if we've spoken about it but you repeatedly do it, you are now disrespecting me, because you are kind of saying my feelings are invalid. So you are invalidating my feelings. We've spoken about it. I told you that, listen, Bridget, when you do 1, 2, and 3, I felt disrespected. Now it's for you to say, okay, my partner doesn't like it when I do this. My partner doesn't like it when I cheat, or my partner doesn't like it when I have extramural exercises. But then what is it that pushes me to keep doing it? Is it because I don't value my partner? Is it because I don't respect my partner? Or is it, some people will say, we have serial cheaters out there. And then they'll say to you, when we got into the relationship, I told you that I can't stick to one partner, and you accepted. So it meant that you were willing to accept my infidelity. So also, as the partner that's being cheated on, you need to respect yourself enough to say, this is where I draw the line. Because there's a saying that says, you teach people how to treat you. Right. So if you repeatedly allow this person to disrespect you, then they find that it's okay to treat you that way, because you've been accepting it. So if you've accepted it once, what's stopping you from accepting it again? So to go back to the answer, the simple answer of it is, no, there has to be limits to the forgiveness, and there has to be sense to you forgiving the action. But you can't every week you are forgiving for the same thing, it simply means this person is not taking you seriously and they're not taking your feelings into account.
Absolutely. Let's just make it a trio then, because now we've got communication, we've got kindness and forgiveness, and then as our final point.
Sure. Okay, let's say another one that's very closely linked to the kindness and whatnot, trust.
Mm-hmm.
Do we trust each other? Do I trust you? Because people will very easily do stuff because they think you trust them. But when it comes to trust, can I, as your partner, trust you that in my absence you will still behave, or in my absence? I always say, even to my friends, there's a friend of mine, I always say to her, listen, as soon as you step out of that door, you are representing me. Are you happy with your representation of me today? So as my partner, can I trust that even in my absence, you will be well behaved, or you will do the right thing? Or are you only behaved when I'm in your presence? So are we in that relationship able to trust one another? If it's a no, then the relationship is not healthy. There is no sound and stable relationship without trust. We can never build a relationship without trust.
I want to add, and my mind was quickly trying to find her name. There's the young pastor, the daughter of Pastor T.D. Jakes. And she spoke about this recently, about trust, having to trust. And I've got to wrap my conversation. But she spoke about trust is not even just about whether or not you're going to be faithful to me. I've got to trust you with my life. I've got to trust you with life decisions. I've got to trust that we're going to raise children the same way. I've got to trust that we're going to be on the same page, that we're going to be good life partners. I got to trust that you're going to make the right decisions if I'm incapacitated and I can't make decisions for myself.
You went and you made it deep. You went and you made it deep. Yeah, it's Sarah Jakes, that one. Sarah Jakes Roberts.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and I found that interesting.
Very interesting, because I just touched on the base, the tip of the iceberg of the trust issue. But now you went and you made it a real life, because if we're making a decision, and we need to make a life-changing decision, can I trust that you will have my best interest at heart? Can I trust that you are doing the right thing for us? You mentioned buying a house. Can I trust that we will buy the right house for us as a family unit? Or are you only looking at it for you going to be comfortable? Am I also going to be comfortable in that?
Yeah.
If we're taking out loans or securities, can I trust that you will consider my feelings in any decisions that we are making? Can I trust that you will have my best interest at heart, not just the infidelity and the what sort of smaller decisions in the relationship, but life-changing, as you said. And we can even say, should one day I be in hospital, can I trust that if you need to make a decision whether to save me or not, can I trust that you will make the right decision that will be best for the both of us? Or are you going to make a decision that fits you better?
Tidi, I wish we had more time because we've just scratched the surface. But thank you for affording us some time in your calendar this afternoon. That was Tidi Letswane, who is a relationship coach. It's just gone 2:30. A moment ago, Madupi standing by with the headline news.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridge, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, judgment is being delivered in the Life Esidimeni inquest in the High Court in Pretoria. Public Works and Infrastructure says it has detected widespread fraud and corruption amounting to 300 million rand within the department over the past 10 years. And a new African Union-led initiative to try to end the war in Sudan is due to be getting underway in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa. Details of these and other stories coming up at 3.
Made in SA.
We've got Ditiro Mashego joining us now, founder and managing director of Sirati for Made in SA. How are you doing this afternoon? Ditiro?
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm great. Thank you so much. So born and bred in Limpopo and then moved to Pretoria in the early 90s, and you graduated from the Tshwane University of Technology. Did you graduate already with a diploma degree in textiles?
Yes, I did. I got a national diploma in textiles in 2018. And then only recently did I do my postgraduate diploma in fine and applied arts, which was more like a integration of the textile and the fine art element.
Oh, interesting. And the need to focus on a postgrad in applied arts, fine applied arts?
That was really more of a desire to go more into research, because I've always found research very exciting, especially in the space of art and understanding what textile language is, just having a vocabulary for the fine art element of my business. So outside of the print itself, being able to write, read semiotic imagery, understanding different cultural nuances as to why textiles come from where and how they're made and who made them when, all that kind of knowledge always fascinated me.
I mean, very unique, I think, unique positioning for your business, right? A lot of designers will just draw inspiration from whether it's various societies, cultures, and nations on the continent or on the globe, but without context as to the history, the legacy, or even just the craftsmanship behind some of the textiles and the designs. For you, why is that an important distinction for your business to have an understanding of?
Bridget, when I was still at varsity, in my formative years, I always wondered as to why our curriculum was not so focused on unpacking what African knowledge systems were, how we came about designing our own sort of craft materials, what kind of fabrics we use, because the understanding is that post-colonialism, we wore animal hides, but I would imagine that there was much more to that. So I think when you think of heritage, and that's how I started my inquiry into understanding the whole indigenous knowledge systems and how you build a brand identity that is rooted in one's individual identity, specifically that. And then now understanding that it actually it translates all over the world. It didn't just happen in Africa. It happened in the Asias. It happened in the Americas, and how we have also cross-pollinated across the world. Our own textiles becoming who we are today has not necessarily been a combination of our own making, but also of different trade experiences, different colonial regimes, and all kinds of experiences have made us who we are. But I think in my personal brand experience, I always try to ground what I do in what I understand my own identity is, to be a post-apartheid experience. Yes, I do reference quite a bit to my own family history and cultural identity, but I also look at a global stance because I'm a globalized person. I grew up in a very globalized world with access to TV, magazines, and all of that. So my understanding of what fashion is, my understanding of what art is, my understanding of textiles will come from that.
Yeah. Titero, I just want to, and I know that I let our conversation go, but I just want to try and switch your line quickly just to get a crisper line. So while my back of house team, my producers are working on that, okay, we do have you on another line. Hopefully it will be a lot clearer. And you speak about Serati being inspired by, and your designs being inspired by your own personal culture and heritage. And that's important, I think, for a lot of African creatives, not just South African creatives, but African creatives, to also tap into the wealth of knowledge and resource that just lies within the self?
Absolutely. I think you see a lot of it in your West African design ethos, and how West Africans have honed in on their ability to create, especially where it comes into that diaspora conversation, where they look at exactly how materials were made and they go back to their roots before they create a product. So looking at how bark was made, looking at how certain types of Accra fabrics were made, and then integrating that into a more contemporary world. So I think of my cultural experience in the same way. I look at how far backwards I can trace it, and then a little bit more into how I have become and who I am becoming, and then integrate those two worlds. I don't think it's possible really to say about a brand is built on heritage without paying homage to its history and specifically more of a cultural identity that anchors it.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that I sort of gather from the reading around you is your very sort of conscious stance on trying to challenge the elitist status quo. But what does that look like, by way of practice through the medium of fashion?
For me, it's mainly in conversation. I wouldn't necessarily say that downplaying the integrity and the pure intellect that comes from African craft is something that has not been seen for a very long time. Where you look at something that is sold in the street and you consider it as art or as, craft, and then when you look at something that is in a higher end store and you consider that as art, or design. So I think my specific approach is usually to look at something that has more of a African identity. So not necessarily saying that because it's not made in France, it has a lesser value. It is made in Africa. It is completely made in Africa, inspired by African or South African materials and ideas and ideologies, and then given to the South African people. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily go to a South African person. Most people that would buy my product and my art would be tourists and people that are more interested in the identity or just curious about the culture. But what I've seen, right, over the years, and what I loved about the idea of even just the full circle experience is that slowly you see how South Africans identify themselves through their own craft and design products. They understand the importance of celebrating it on a daily basis as opposed to only at a set month or for weddings and occasions, but owning those kind of cultural artifacts as self. So I think that's how I then, I'd say, move in that space. Not necessarily because I don't mass produce. I make very niche, small product lines. I try by all means to have a very small carbon footprint as well in my manufacturing process. So that also comes into play as far as how I apply indigenous knowledge systems within my design practice. So it's more of an awareness campaign, more of just being seen and understood as a designer and a creative who exists to constantly celebrate the South African aesthetic, the South African identity, the African spirit, all things design globally, because I also use quite a bit of Asian inspiration in my work as well. But yeah, that's how I move in this space.
I mean, we could talk forever and a day because there's a great appreciation, at least from my end, of African creatives who are really challenging how we see ourselves as peoples of this continent, but also how we see ourselves within the context of, our collective identities as global citizens. But what a pleasure it was getting to know you. And as we were chatting, I was scrolling through some of your Instagram to have a look at some of your incredible works. That was founder and managing director of Sereti, Ditiro Mashego. And of course, you can find her on Instagram if you want to have a look at some of her work. If you Instagram her name, you'll get to see her practice as an artist. And then if you Instagram Sereti Studio, you'll get to see her work as a designer in the apparel world. Thank you so much for the time. It's fast approaching 1:45. Let's quickly find out what's coming up today on the National Pulse, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap up the show with Omi Naidu, who's a dietitian. And of course, we're talking around the impact of diet on anxiety and depression.
Nelson Mandela once said,
It is in your hands to create a better world for all who live in it.
SAFM urges you to identify those in need around you and to do what you can to make a difference to them. Tata Mandela went further to say, what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we led. SAFM celebrates Mandela Month. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Ashraf is in the building. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, and trust you are good today. Had a hectic day,
good.
But fine. Yeah.
Your days are always hectic.
They are.
What's coming up today?
Well, talk about hectic. We will have an update on the Gaten McKenzie stories. We chat to somebody from the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture about just some of the money's names have been released, so we'll talk about that. I mean, he tweets like an influencer at the moment. He does it every minute, so you can't miss it, right? So we'll talk about that. We'll also chat to Doctors Without Borders from Sudan around the issues and the problems around humanitarian issues around Sudan. You know, there's the life Esidimeni judgment that's taking place right now. So we'll have reaction from that. So what else do we have? Oh, yes, Welenzima Vavi has added his considerable weight value to the debate around John Schlopp. And he says, in fact, there needs to be a rethink around, how people get elected to Parliament. So even by the letter of the law, if it's legal, it may not be the right thing to do. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk to him about that, in fact, yeah.
Interesting
all of
stuff.
That, the National Pulse, yeah.
On the National Pulse. And whilst, just as a quick side note, please do ask the department that context matters in these lists.
Explain what that means.
Context in as far as them firstly explaining the criteria by which, because we were talking about it, and we had a look at the list and, the discrepancies in this person receiving this much. And Kaifa Semenya, for instance, received 10,000, and then Mac G with the podcast received 75. And so we had to deduce with my team that perhaps there was a criterion that was based on scaling and it wasn't a flat out, But if you're just going to release things without context, then you're causing the worst kind of
That question we were asking,
discourse.
you're quite right. So it's possible somebody has received R1 million who's received very little based upon the trade-off that they may have got with them in terms of work they've done. We don't know that.
We don't know any of this stuff. So please do interrogate. All right.
We'll do.
That's coming up today between 3 and 6 o'clock with Ashraf Gada. All right, let's have a quick pause and then we come back and we wrap up the show.
Yeah. We can do this. It's been a long time coming. This deserves to grow. It's a great business. If they don't like it, someone else will. And fund me so I can expand. Maybe I can offer them shares. I need to retain equity for staff. It's going to be good for recruitment. Yeah.
Possible begins with that one great idea. When Telkom enables entrepreneurs to make their ingenuity a reality, we grow local economies. Telkom. Possible begins here.
The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from 10 to 12 July 2024 in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. Tune in to the Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda to get insights from the conference. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
You are listening to the Full Circle.
We are wrapping up our side of the conversations today, catching up with dietitian and director of nutrition wellness, Omi Naidu joins us now, and we're looking at the potential impact of diet on anxiety and depression. 75 years later, it's estimated that 20% of the general population has experienced a mental health disorder within the last 12 months, and 29% of the population will experience anxiety and or depression in their lifetime. How are you doing this afternoon?
It's a very good afternoon to you and your listeners, and I'm feeling well and happy to be on the show.
Thank you for taking the time. I mean, these are not sort of stats that one should pass by without interrogating. The fact that 29% of the population will experience anxiety and or depression in their lifetime, that's a cause for one to pause and think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the cherry on top is that even those that are diagnosed with anxiety and depression or other mental health issues, they don't get full resolving of the symptoms with just medical therapy and psychotherapy. And this is where the evidence is showing us the role of nutrition can be an add-on therapy to get that patient to the finish line in terms of treatment success, fighting that mental health issue.
So what are some of the essential nutrients and foods then that one can be, educating oneself about to help either alleviate the symptoms or to better manage through a balanced diet?
So if you're looking at the nutrients, and the most studied diet in the world is called the Mediterranean diet.
Okay.
And another version of that is the anti-inflammatory diet. And what this typically means in terms of foods is that you want to try and have a diet that's very low in red meat, which is pro-inflammatory. You want to swap out the red meat for things like fish, as well as plant-based protein, so beans, peas, and lentils. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you're having plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables. The more processed foods you have, the more inflammation you have in your body, and that affects your mental health. And also just making sure that you're having a lot of roughage or fiber. So that's like your brown bread, brown rice, brown pasta. Why we say fiber is that it stabilizes your blood glucose levels. As we'll talk further in the interview, we know that blood sugar levels also impact anxiety.
Now, we also...
Sorry, I'll just quickly recap it for your listeners there. That was a bit of a mouthful. You want to have less red meat, more fish, and plant-based protein. You want to try and have brown fibers, so your bread, rice, potatoes. And then also you want to make sure that you're having more wholesome, more natural foods.
Now, Omi, we also know that evidence does suggest that the relationship between specific nutrients and mental health symptoms is not really one that is understood. So how do we then get, particularly to those folks who have been diagnosed, how do we make this information a bit clearer, a bit more crisp, and also delivered in a way that's quite, what's the word? Almost elementary, so that it is really crystallized and resonates.
Okay, so the first step is to understand that the aim of all the interviews I do is advocacy for nutrition. And evidence is quite abundant. First world countries, this is what they're adopting in terms of mental health treatment, is good dietary advice. So if it's somebody listening to the call, my advice is start the discussion with your doctor or your treating provider to find out how can you access a dietitian. Whether it's in the public health sector or in the private, there's an abundance of good dietitians that can walk the journey with you. The second one is to know that as we look at it, there's tons of evidence. I'll just share one study very quickly with you where one group, the patients were put on normal therapy, which was seeing their psychologist, and the second group was seeing the psychologist, but also they included a dietitian who put them on an anti-inflammatory diet. What they what they found when they compared the two groups was a 32% reduction in depressive symptoms. I'll repeat, 32% reduction in depressive symptoms when we included a good diet for those patients. And it all comes down to one concept. The feel-good hormone in the body, which is called serotonin, is manufactured in the gut, telling us we're not taking in the right foods and modulating a good, healthy gut bacteria. This then affects mental health.
You would almost swear that it was Gut Health Week, because yesterday we had a conversation around gut health, and then we had a conversation around gut health relating to overall skincare. We were talking about skincare, but tied it back to gut health. And here we are again, doubling back to gut health. Because even when we talk around, as you've just alluded, even when we talk around mental health and mental wellness, gut health is very much central to these conversations around overall physical, mental, body health and balance.
Absolutely. And if you take it one step back, that gut health that we control and the bacteria that we control is directly linked to the food choices we make. The more westernized diet we have, the lots of processed foods, it reduces what's called the biodiversity of the gut microbiome. I can tell you as a medical professional as well, there's not a congress that we attend that there's not at least one speaker talking about gut health being linked to that condition. So as we're learning more, we're understanding that the food we eat affects the gut that we have, and that then modulates so many organs in the body.
So, all right, let's quickly double back. You mentioned blood sugar stability and hypoglycemia also relating to anxiety and other issues. Let's expand on that a little bit.
Okay, so a lot of the patients that I see that do have anxiety as well, very often when we track their eating patterns, it's often they have long gaps between the meals. And their sugars drop at certain periods in the day because they're not eating, and this then worsens. They actually report more anxiety, more of these feelings of overwhelmed and all of those things. And the science behind it is that once the sugar levels drop, the body starts to release a hormone called adrenaline. If we think about adrenaline, normally we know people jump off mountains and do all sorts of adventure sports for adrenaline because they want to get their heart pumping, their pores get sweaty, they feel a bit, that thrill of adrenaline pumping through the body. So adrenaline comes out through the body when the sugar levels drop. And then after a while, if it's dropped for a long period, there's another hormone called cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and that makes the feeling of anxiety as well even worse. So if we're looking at it, when you don't eat for a long period, your sugar levels drop, your body releases hormones that mimic the reaction of anxiety in your body. The heart rate goes up, sweaty palms, feeling of overwhelm. It's all these things that make your anxiety worse.
Just as a parting shot, and by no means, I'm not hearing you saying that a healthy diet alone is going to roll back the diagnosis of anxiety and depression. But what I am hearing you say is a healthy diet incorporated with another medical plan treatment is probably the best course of action. Am I extracting correct from our conversation?
Absolutely. You're on the right track. But, just to put it in perspective, as I said, with your medication and your psychotherapy, there's a vast majority of the listeners on the interview today that are not getting treatment success, meaning they're not getting resolution of depression, they're not getting resolution of anxiety. So first world countries have already adopted, including a healthy, balanced diet and a consult with a dietitian to get them to that treatment success.
Lovely. Omi Naidu, we appreciate the time. And Omi is a dietitian and, of course, director of Nutrition Wellness. And you can find them, of course, if you want to have a conversation with them. They have a digital footprint. We are getting ready to wrap up the show and pack our bags and head off to Cape Town for one day only. As Diana Ross once said, you've got one night only with Ashraf Gada and myself in Cape Town. And hopefully by the time we get there, I don't know what the weather is going to be doing, because I know that it's still bitterly cold in the Eastern Cape because that snow did fall at the beginning parts of the week. The Western Cape has been experiencing some horrendous weather as well, from what we've been seeing on, all the news outlets. And there's a level 8 warning for tomorrow. I don't know what that means in context of Cape Town. So if you are in Cape Town, perhaps you can tell us what the weather is like over there today so that we can prepare accordingly by way of just our mental preparation of what we will be getting when we get there. And considering that Cape Town, you just never know, So I'm not too sure what to expect, but we're going to be in Cape Town tomorrow. Hopefully we'll be able to fly. And guys, so I'm saying we're going to see you in Cape Town, but who knows? We might not see you in Cape Town. But as it stands right now, we'll be in Cape Town with you tomorrow. Let's actually wrap up the show. I'm going to officially wrap it up from my end. Thank you so much for participating in all of our conversations today and for lending us your ear. We don't take it for granted that you could be anywhere and you choose to be here with us on SAFM. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again, but I leave you with voice notes from our earlier conversation that should segue you nicely into the National Pulse.
Good afternoon. I'm in full support of what Minister Bridget Masinga have done. Excellent work. 2 years back, my cousin, little cousin, was attending school in one of schools in the Western Cape. Now they won a competition as a school sport, soccer sport, to go to, I think it was Paris. Guess what? The parent had to cough up on their own pockets for their children to go to Paris. The Department of Sport and Recreation couldn't support. To tell you, only 7 players went there. Only 7. So I think what he has done is great. Mono in Cape Town.
Hi, SAFM. This is Daniel Joshua Challen. I believe the decision of the new Minister of Sports is something this country required at a long time. If you look at sports in this country, it was very biased. It only supported the major supporters of one particular sport, that soccer, irrespective of whether our country was involved or doing good or bad. The play had it on every radio channel and different TV program. Yet you look at the World Cricket we had and the World Rugby, it's only on paid channel. Only the rich can look after it. And here you hear news of super fans are being paid to go and support the country as the sports in the different countries. Why couldn't that money be used to give us over the air the radio and TV commentary of our World Cups of the other sports? Thank you and God bless you.
Hi, Bridget. I think the superfan is maybe more cosmetic than an essential. And if the minister's point is that they are trying to fund things that are essential, then maybe the superfan doesn't need to come from that budget. But the superfan, maybe to Dumi's point, can be found. They can look for funding for it elsewhere. Perhaps they can do a collaborative effort with sponsors and the federation. But I'm not sure that the ministry itself should be paying for the super fans.
The top stories at 3 o'clock, judgment in the Life Esidimeni matter, and the Public Works experiences widespread corruption. A very good afternoon. The Pretoria High Court has found that former Gauteng Health MEC Qetani Mahlangu and former head of Mental Health Services Dr. Makhabo Manamela could have prevented the deaths of 144 patients who died in the Life Esidimeni tragedy. The patients died after being relocated from Life Esidimeni, a highly specialized long-term psychiatric hospital, to ill-equipped and unlicensed NGOs. Judge Munuwatefo is handing down the judgment virtually.
Ms. Mahlangu proceeded to terminate the contract between Life Esidimeni Care Center and the Gauteng Department of Health, despite numerous expert advice and warnings from the professionals in mental health and stakeholders. Her conduct led to the regrettable and unfortunate deaths, some of which could have been avoided. Effectively, Mr. Dani Mahlangu and Dr. Manamela created the circumstances